We all know people who take a personal coach when they want to change their career, or a sports coach. But when it comes to bankers, well, I was surprised. For me, bankers aren't the first group of people that comes into mind that needs a coach. They're managing a lot of money of individuals, so people trust them. Bankers never showcase they are wrong. Bankers look like they know their business. At least that's what we hope. Last year, in Geneva, I met Frederick Kermisch. He's a coach for private bankers. And I became curious. So finally, we found the time to ask him some serious questions to understand the world of banking and why bankers need a coach. Let's see if our money is safe or if the bankers are ticking time bombs. So welcome, Frederick, on the We the Business podcast. So let me start with the most straightforward question. Do you agree or not with the definition of coaching, that coaching is helping to improve people's performance by helping them to learn?
Very much. I think it's really fundamental to help people become more autonomous. When we do that, they go further, faster. The things that we look at become much more interesting when people are learning. So it also, this is another advantage, it gives people more ownership over what they're doing. And what we really want when we coach people, I find, is that people are capable of giving their best when they are in this situation without having to rely on any further form of support. I keep on thinking of the image of being a tennis coach is you help prepare someone for the match, but the person is on his own during the match, and you want them to give the best performance. So it's helping them learn, helping them grow, finding what works. And the real test is there any tangible change? If there is, then something's working out. And if there isn't, then we probably have to rethink the approach. So very much helping people learn, become more autonomous.
But when I think of bankers, because we trust them with money, so I hope they know their job, keep privacy high. How does it work when they work with a coach like you? I mean, do you get some crazy secret insights?
Well, so you get a few insights. What I do when I work with bankers is I don't want to know anything about I don't want to know who the clients are. So somebody will say, for example, my client is Mr. X. This is the profile. The person is a, entrepreneur in the mid-50s. Gives me a little bit of background. This is roughly the situation. This is what I'm trying to do with Mr. X. This is what's blocking. This is the background, the conversations we had. That's all I need to know. I don't need to know if it's someone famous, someone not famous. I've never Googled a person, and I don't want enough information to be able to find the person, even if I wanted to. So this is the case, interestingly, in with most bankers, is I don't want to know the information. Some bankers actually, in other jurisdictions, they just go, oh, I'm trying to approach this person. And most of the time I've never heard of them, but they go, well, of course we can tell the name because there's no Swiss banking secrecy rules. But in my mind, I don't care. I don't care if the person's famous, not famous. What really matters is, can the banker improve the approach to the person, improve the interactions, have better conversations, better dialogues, understand what the person needs? Is there anything they can offer? So it's sort of ironic. It's very personal, but beyond the public figure, beyond the name. It's really about the psychology of the person and how the person is thinking and making decisions.
So our privacy, because I'm living in Switzerland, is still guaranteed when they talk to you.
Oh, absolutely. And this is actually, it's interesting. It's even the case. It happens that bankers contact me and say, I need help. I'm stuck. I need to raise assets. My employer's putting pressure on me and is not offering me any support. So I'm taking ownership over my career. I see that there's no support coming from inside. I have to work things out. If I knew how to work things out, I'd be doing it. If I'm not doing it, it's not that I'm not motivated, because if it works, I get paid more money. If it doesn't work, I lose my job. So I'm really motivated, but I'm stuck. I don't know how to do it. And so it happens, people contact me and say, my employer doesn't know. I don't want my employer to find out because I'm nervous about how they react to it. If they do find out, there has to be nothing that compromises anything whatsoever. So I'm really in this sort of paranoid mode of no information, nothing being recorded, any notes or anything like that, just has nothing in it. And even if somebody listened to the conversations, there'd be nothing in there where the banker would be in a situation that's difficult or dangerous, or so on. And we're very careful. That's why I say someone is roughly mid-50s. I don't want to know the exact age, because that would be an indication that would allow someone to trace the contact. We don't want that. It's not even necessary. It's not valuable. If someone tells me about some client, it could be a famous, I don't know, football player or politician. It doesn't change my work at all. And it's actually quite fun because it doesn't change my work. We view people as individuals, which means when bankers view them as individuals, the relationship improves because we just view them as human beings instead of viewing them as, personas, public figures. And that's a huge part of the work that really leads to much better results.
So this brought me to a question. Do we have to see bankers as an entrepreneur, someone who's working for a big corporation, an employee, or pure sales, the typical pure salespeople?
It's a very interesting question, and you find all sorts. Typically, and this is a model that usually is confirmed, typically you've got different mindsets. So if someone is working for a large corporation, one of the bigger banks, they will generally have more of the employee mindset. They're treated more like employees. Their compensation is often discretionary. So regardless of the results, there's no real formula about how they get paid, which induces also an employee mindset. Possibly that's what the employer wants, because a banker who's too autonomous might decide to leave with the clients. And of course, the big banks, they're looking for this balance where they're providing the banker with access to clients, meaning that the banker has a possibility of leaving with the clients, but of course the bank doesn't want the banker to leave with the clients. So what happens generally is bankers will start in large corporations. They have access to all of this money. They realize that a few things can happen if they change. If they go to a smaller bank, they can earn more money. That's a huge part of the motivation. It's one of the worst reasons to do it, because the second part is if they can't offer something that's more relevant to the clients probably won't follow them. And that happens so often. And I've seen multiple bankers leave the large corporation thinking, I've had amazing results. I assume it's all because of me, or a big part of it is because of me. So if I leave, the clients will follow. And then the clients don't follow. And then they revert back into the employee mindset of trying to please the boss, finding excuses, coming up with, new potential avenues. And I've seen it with bankers. They'd switch banks. They'd arrive with a whole list of prospects. And after a few months, they'd suddenly talk about the new hot prospects that they have. And you go, if you're fishing for new hot prospects, it means you went through your existing client list and no one followed you, which is a pretty bad sign. Like if your hit ratio is 0, that should be telling you something. So you can go on and bluff about that. It might work. But then what's the probability? This is one of the crazy things with hope. So what really works nicely is when a banker has the entrepreneurial mindset, views him or herself as a business unit that should be profitable, that should be able to offer something of value to the clients, and understand what it takes to offer something that's valuable, generate enough revenue, get the compensation. They're using the brand of the bank, otherwise they do it on their own, the brand of the bank or the company, and they're able to make the mathematics work. And I see quite often people who are stuck. A big part of the problem is the employee mindset, where they're used to doing what they're asked and what they're told to do, and it's not working. And now they have the responsibility of it not working. And it's a bit schizophrenic. You have the responsibility, but you're not given the tools. You never learned how to do it. And this is one of the strange things. So as I work with people whose clients are ultra high net worth, so millionaires, billionaires, and so on, When dealing with a multimillionaire, it can be a bit daunting if you're not a multimillionaire yourself, and most of us are not multimillionaires. Or if you're dealing with a billionaire, it can be a bit daunting. And so we tend to fall back into specific psychological roles and games that are not conducive to healthy conversations, are not conducive to understanding what people need, and are not conducive to running a healthy business. And so getting people to shift from this employee mindset to the entrepreneur mindset is fundamental. And you mentioned the last point, are they salespeople? It depends what we mean by salespeople. Some are the archetypical salespeople who are very pushy, who think that if they talk enough, maybe something will work. And they show up and they it's quite funny to see them do it. I mean, it's sad, but funny. They come and they say, let me tell you why our company is amazing. They talk about themselves for hours. They walk out of there thinking, that was a great meeting because I said everything I had to say. And then they're surprised that it doesn't lead anywhere. And that's part of the mindset that I use is, or the mindset change. I see people who don't want to be these annoying, pushy salespeople because it's not them. And usually the existing client base like them because it's not them, but they don't know how to guide a conversation without being pushy. And this is where I intervene and where we use the tools I have to simply have a conversation that isn't pushy, but puts them in control, allows them to be comfortable getting no's, gives them all the tools to understand what the clients want and need and what it would take for them to change banks. And it just feels natural like a conversation because they have the tools. And it's easier to say, there's this exercise that clients have found really helpful. Would it be a stupid idea to spend 10 minutes just reviewing it to make sure I understand what you really expect from me? And of course, everyone says, sounds like a great idea. But based on that, we can then talk about opening accounts, increasing assets. You just need to know the tool, understand how to use it, and understand the mindset. But the results are just phenomenal.
Mhm.
And the great thing is, bankers are competing against other bankers. So as long as the others have the employee mindset, or are the pushy salespeople, or are afraid to talk, it's easy to stand out and be so much better than competition. It's really easy, and that's a great news.
Yeah, coming back to there. So, but banking, because you were now specific talking about banking, there are so many more regulations, and certain countries even more than in others. Certainly in Switzerland and so on. I'm more in e-commerce, so we theoretically we have zero regulations. We just have to deliver the product. Can bankers be creative in their sales process, like you explained there? Can they personalize the connection with their clients? Because we know that if you want to be successful in sales, it's all about the connection. And so I thought this is probably one of the issues bankers have, and that's why they come to you. How can they create those connection without what you already a little bit said, just telling what the bank wants them to tell? But how far can they go? How far can you train them so they can go further? Or are you also blocked by special regulations?
In this case, there's not that much in terms of the conversation. So the different stages, and you sort of touched upon this beforehand in terms of bankers who are very professional. So why do they need a coach? And the different stages. One part is they're very professional with the technical side, but I work with the interaction bit. So the regulation typically will be leading up to the moment when they sit down in front of the client. How are they allowed to approach the client? What can they offer? What can they do? What can they say? A lot of that is a technical part. I focus really on the conversation between two individuals and preparing it, leading it, asking the right questions, working on fear that people have of asking the wrong question, being too pushy, giving the wrong answer. And there's a lot of freedom because even if the banker's boss wants them to do something during the presentation, such as read out this slideshow, if the banker decides to freestyle, they can. Now, why would they do that? Well, typically because they realize that reading out the slideshow doesn't produce optimal results. Otherwise, they'd be, having enough money, the boss would be happy, everyone would be happy. They realize it doesn't work well, or this could work, something else could work better. And even if it works well enough, and it sort of works, but they're under pressure to raise more assets, or they realize that, you might be managing a few hundred million for someone, but maybe there could be an extra 50 or 100 million there for you to manage if you had the right conversation. If there's no downside to having that conversation, why not have it? So what's a big thing I focus on is we eliminate the downside to the conversation. So there's no reason not to have it, but there's actually a downside to not having the conversation. And I help them focus on that. If you don't do it, this is what's going to happen. If you do it, you have no risk. There's only upside. And it takes quite a bit of preparation to do that, to change the mindset, to understand the tools. I mean, quite a bit of preparation. In a few sessions, the people are ready. Then it's about practice. So within the conversation with an individual client or prospect, there's a lot of freedom, and a lot of freedom to ask questions, how to lead it. One of the first things I want people to do is break out of the "let me read you a slideshow" mindset, or "let me act like a little child who's handing in the homework in front of a teacher and hoping to get a good grade." We see it all the time. And a bit of the slideshow mindset is exactly that. I'll show you I did my homework. But the thing is, humans like us, clients, it's not about the banker doing the homework. We hope that they do the homework. If they don't do the homework, it's a problem. But that's not enough. It's a bit like, I sometimes take this metaphor. If someone comes to you and says, "Hi, I brush my teeth," you don't say, "Wow, will you marry me?" But if they don't, you're not going to talk to them. So it's really the difference between deal breaker and unique selling point. Doing the homework is part of the basics. If they don't do it, it's a deal breaker. But coming up to the client and being proud that you did the basics and saying, "We're amazing because you did the basics," that will impress the wrong clients. Or the clients hear that from everyone, which is usually the case. So it's so easy to stand out. And, the freedom in the conversation is the freedom between two individuals, pretty much.
But can you give, without revealing the name of bankers or and so on, or clients, can you tell us an issue that they had, you coached them, and afterwards it was solved and they had success? Is it possible?
Sure. Yeah. Listen, there are a few of them. So one that comes to mind was a banker who had switched banks, had difficulties raising more assets, and was stuck. And one of the issues that the banker had was saying, "How can I go back to my former clients after X many years and suddenly talk about them opening an account? I didn't do it at first. If I do it after 2 years or 3 years, it just feels wrong. It feels weird. It feels awkward." So in this case, it was going, well, let's figure out for what good reason could you have waited 2 or 3 years? And we found a very valid reason, which made it really easy to call the people up and have this conversation. Hey, it's been a long time. I switched banks, and now is the right time for me to call you because... And if people want to know that, I'll tell you offline. If people want to know, they can contact me, because there was a sort of stroke of genius, because all of the clients went, "Yeah, that makes sense. I'm happy that you contacted me now. It makes sense. And thank you for waiting until now to contact me. I didn't realize that you had this plan, but it makes perfect sense. So thank you." Some of them said, "We're not in a position to make any change, but it's good let's stay in touch." And, and then my banker found out why they were not in a position to make a change. For some of them, they actually were in a position to make a change, but they hadn't realized it. And others, they said, "Well, we'll touch base in 6 months or 12 months. And for others, they said, "Well, why not? Why not have a meeting and have a chat and see what it is you're doing? Like you say, you don't know if you can provide anything, but you remember the stuff I was frustrated with, and I'm still frustrated with it. So yes, having a chat would make perfect sense." And that was interesting. Was a part of the narrative. That's part of the process I have. How do we make it easy for people to call people up and feel really comfortable calling them? Have a good story that is true, that makes sense, or more or less true in this case, The argument made sense. The only thing is, he said, well, this is the plan. He didn't tell them the plan was invented a week before. So it sounded like it had been a long-term plan, but it made perfect sense, and it was true, very truthful. So that was a one fun example.
Yeah, that's interesting, because when I hear this, for me, I saw bankers like car dealers, like they were just telling and trying to sell their products, their services, and so on. But also, they have the same problems as me as an entrepreneur. Should I go back to my first clients that never came back to my e-commerce? The answer is yes. So it's independent from the industry, it seems.
Yeah, very much. At the end of the day, for me, selling is simply about helping. If you can help someone and, if you can help someone and they buy the services from you, that's a great outcome. If you can't help them and they don't buy it, that's also a great outcome. If someone comes to you, wants you to solve a problem, you can't solve it, they don't buy, then it's great. If they buy from you, but you can't solve their problem, then it's a terrible outcome. Those are going to be real problem clients, and they're going to be upset, understandably, and feel let down and abused, and that makes sense. But if they can buy from you, if you can help them and they don't buy from you, then you're making their life a bit worse. So in this case, we focus the conversation on what are the needs, can we do anything? And with regular sales techniques that I've seen time and time again, it's very pushy. It's focused on the outcome. It's very much saying, look, what we're doing is amazing. Basically, it's very childish. It's sort of saying, I'm going to give you a lot of information, and I hope you'll like something. And if you don't, maybe the problem is I haven't given you enough information. But this in psychology, we explain this. It's somebody acting like a little child in front of a parent who judges. But if you go to the dentist doesn't say, please try to work with me, and this is great, and look at the machines I have and the technology I have. The dentist says, okay, do you have a toothache? And if you go, no, my elbow hurts, the dentist doesn't try to repair your teeth. So if you have an elbow problem, go and see somewhere else. So if we take this mindset and focus on the people and their needs, it changes the dynamic. And then we can be curious and ask questions. If somebody goes to the dentist with an elbow problem, the dentist isn't upset if the person walks out the door. They don't want to help the person because they can't. They don't have the skill set. But with bankers, and a lot in sales, there's this hope. Maybe, if only it works out, it would be amazing. And that's one of the worst drugs, one of the most potent drugs, hope. And because they're blinded by it, instead of having the conversation, qualifying, disqualifying the other client, it often is so much, I want it to happen so badly that if I cross my fingers and I close my eyes, maybe something will work. Like, it doesn't work that way. No. It really doesn't. If anything, it turns people off. I don't want to work with a banker like that. They're all about themselves. They don't ask me questions. But as soon as you can have the conversation, you feel comfortable having it, then it's eye-opening. And then we show that we genuinely care. And the good bankers genuinely care about their clients. They spend so much time with them, looking after the money. It's like a good family doctor. They want their clients to be healthy. Good bankers want the clients to be, healthy and wealthy, and the money to be well looked after. It's the same mindset.
Interesting. So how do bankers define success for themselves before you meet them? And how is that different from your view on success for bankers? Is there a difference?
Yeah, there's a huge difference.
Okay.
The way bankers usually define success for themselves first is, what is the level of compensation? For them, that's the absolute metric. For me, it's a bit different. For me, part of success is, that's one part. It's one component of it. Another part is, to what extent are they in the process of optimizing their book of clients? To what extent are they in the process of optimizing their skill set? So if you remove all the clients, are they capable of starting over again? If they are, that's pretty successful. It also means, and the two usually go together, if you improve your skill set, you'll be optimizing your book. And this is something I know that it makes a number of bankers sort of and their employers, they sort of short circuit when they hear this. Is the reason why compensation and the assets under management, the money being managed by the banker, the reason why this is not that important for me is I don't know what the true potential is. So if you're managing 300 million, it seems like a lot of money. But if you could be managing 600 million and the other 300 is right next to you and you're not getting it, are you more successful than someone who's managing 250 million of a potential 300 million? No, you're not. You're not, because the money's right under your nose and you're not getting it. And that's a huge game changer. First of all, there's that, is how have you optimized your portfolio based on the money that's there? And then the other thing that people forget is clients take a combination of your time, of your energy, and sometimes of your money, but it's usually time and energy, or sometimes they cost you money. If you have, and this is a bit like an art, the quality of a portfolio is the quality of the weakest work of art inside the portfolio. You got one bad one, that's how good you are. The quality of a banker's portfolio is dependent on the weakest client in that portfolio. If you have one idiot who's taking up too much of your time, too much of your energy, and is costing you money, then why is that person there? Because you don't have a choice? That's really bad. How are you tolerating this toxic behavior? Because you're afraid to lose them? That's really bad. And if this happens and the other person just annoys you at the beginning of the day, how's the rest of your day? It's ruined. And then if your good clients call you afterwards and your energy level has been destroyed because of this idiot, well, how is that fair on them? You owe it to them to have a healthy portfolio of clients. And you owe it to this client. If you tolerate this behavior, the client is more likely to continue. And I'll tell you a story there. One of my clients had one of these clients. And my client was really afraid and saying, I'm trying to grow my book. I don't have enough assets. But this person is so annoying. And finally said, you know what? Person pushed the limit. So we prepared this call. And I was amazed that he did it. I said, different options. We look at the options. You choose if you want to do it or not. If you don't do it, you'll have more of this behavior. So, well, I can't tolerate that. So what are you going to do? So he had this call where he called up the client and said, listen, I have to talk honestly with you. I really like you as a person, but my God, you're so annoying. You're so annoying. You call and you talk and talk and talk and complain, and you talk some more and you complain some more. And it depletes my energy. And I try to have a conversation, but it seems like you're just angry and just frustrated. And I can't take it. I can't take it. So much complaining, so much negativity, so much talking. And you have so little money with me. So little. You promised you'd have at least 1 million. We're still at, I think it was like 600,000. We're still below it. You keep on promising you're bringing the money, but you don't bring in the money. What this tells me is you won't bring in the money. You don't like me. You don't like the services. So unfortunately, I think we'd better stop the relationship because I can't take it anymore. And I'm losing money on you. And you're not keeping your word. And you're so negative. And so he stopped talking, felt the pulse. There was a silence. And the client started laughing. And he said, my wife tells me the same thing. I should stop being so negative and talking so much. And he says, there's not enough money. So if I give you more money, can I stay? And he goes, well, you have to change your behavior because I promise I will. Like, well, you say that. How will we know that you will? He goes, well, I don't know. How about you give me a trial period? I go, okay. I give you a trial period. When can you send in the money? And if you haven't changed your behavior in X months, then we terminate the relationship. And the client laughed and he goes, well, yeah, if I want to change my behavior, I should be able to do it long term. So I said, okay, give me 3 months. I promise I won't annoy you for 3 months. And I promise I'll send in the money. And he got in, an extra 2 million, which was above what he said. And the client said, it's good that someone actually tells this to me. I'm used to people who are yes men, yes women, as an entrepreneur who tell me what I want to hear. And that someone actually puts down a limit is refreshing. And also, it's what I expect from a banker. So my client was going like, he could have gone both ways. It's like, you were happy to let them go if they left. You were okay with it because that was better than having more abuse. So, yeah, another crazy story that happened. It seems implausible, but this is a case where the person became more successful because they improved the quality of the portfolio.
I had once, but not on this kind of high level, but I had the same with the employees. There was one client and she was always complaining. So I gave her all the time other stuff to work with her. But then at the end, I told her, listen, I give you all my stuff and still you're complaining. So we can't deliver what you're expecting. So I don't want to see you again. In my case, she didn't come back because for her, it was always getting extra percentages or free treatments and whatever. So, but that was good because I was losing time and my energy to keep the staff happy because this woman was almost abusive and violent. So I had to throw her out. So what you're all telling here is so familiar for me in entrepreneurship and other shops. So what made you go then into coaching for bankers? Because banking world, even though in every country there are banks, but still banking world is rather very small industry comparing to other industries in number of people.
Yeah, that's an interesting story because I worked for a long time in finance in Geneva. I worked actually doing marketing and asset management. And this confuses people. They go, well, you never were a banker. So what the hell do you know about banking? That's a very fair point. Very fair point. On the other hand, I've worked with dozens of bankers, supporting them selling to their clients, supporting them, giving them the information on the asset management investment solutions that we were offering, the funds, always being focused on helping the banker improve their relationship with their client. That to me was the main thing. I didn't care if the client bought our products. In my mind, it was if it improves the relationship, is better for the banker, that's better for the group. So all of the group is making more money. If I'm being pushy, I'm doing the wrong thing in terms of the relationship. So I saw how the bankers worked. I saw what was working better, less well. Doing marketing, I really had this philosophy that the point of marketing is to make sales. If we're not changing the bottom line, or if we're not avoiding losses or lack of sales, then there's no point. There has to be something tangible. Everything I was doing was sale-oriented, sales-focused, even if it was changing slideshows around, typically to stop talking about us so much and talk about the needs. This product was made to answer these needs, and so on. When I wanted to change my career, I loved the idea of coaching, and coaching is really broad, but I love the idea of getting all of this knowledge, reading all these books, understanding the methodology, creating these tools and sharing the tools. And it's not easy to do that when you're in a position where that's not your role. And I wanted to take a step back and think, I want to rethink how things are going. I know things could be going better. I'm not sure how to do it. So I took a step back. And as I was working on learning these coaching tools, I got a call from a banker that I knew who basically said, listen, I need some help. I need to raise more assets. I don't know how to do it. I switched banks. I can't get the clients to follow me. I don't know how to talk to them and all of that story. Could you help me? And I want something that is specifically made for bankers, from someone who understands banking, who understands my position, who's not going to give me training about how to better shake someone's hand, because that isn't what makes someone become a client. I don't want training about random theories that are not relevant. I need to raise assets. Everything we should do should be to raise assets. I'm paying you out of my pocket. I just had a pay cut. Things are financially tense. I'm willing to do it, but I need to make every dollar count, or every Swiss franc count. And I don't want to waste time with random coaches who'll give me theories about stuff. It has to be really oriented towards raising assets. So I created a program with him. His goal was to raise his assets under management, so the money he manages for his clients. His goal was to raise it by 25 to 50% in a year, and we got 50% in 8 months, basically. So just mind-blowing results. Both from existing clients, we raised the share of wallet, former clients and new clients. And they got me thinking about what I could do as a coach. The coaching world is huge. There's a lot of competition. There are a lot of generalists who are very, very good with what they're doing as generalists. But I saw and I see time and time again a need of bankers who want someone who isn't locked into their own belief of, if it worked for me, it will work for everyone else. Someone who's not dogmatic about the approach. Someone who's not trying to prove that their ego is right. And that can be the case. With former bankers, it's a weird thing. If you're a former banker becoming a coach, why are you doing that? What happened to your clients? Why do you no longer have them as clients? There can be good reasons, but these are questions to be asked. And to what extent can you adapt different people's approaches? Or will you think that if you're a pushy banker, the key to your success was being pushy, even when someone else's clients dislike pushy bankers? And so, yeah, looking at the options, I saw that would be interesting. I got more in depth into it. It was fun. I created this methodology that is, as far as I can make out, unique. It seems I'm pretty much the only one in this niche doing it with a specific focus on the psychology, with these different tools. I use rather unique tools. One of them is actually lie detection, understanding micro expressions to help people know when their prospects are lying to them, know when they're lying to themselves. That's quite fun. And it seems that other people are more who cater to bankers do more of the executive coaching, more of the standardized coaching. And I'm really focused on, how do we get you a meeting with someone? Once you have the meeting, how do you deal with the meeting? And how do you follow up? So it's sort of at the end of the process. There's actually a company in Geneva and London. They do a lot of support and consulting for banks, and they do everything up to the point where I start. They do nothing psychological. They don't get it. And they say they'll do all the technical things, all the processes, all of those things, the contracts, but not the psychology. And I start with the psychology of the banker and the psychology of the client, and the psychology of the team. The mindset of how to lead this and how to build actually a sustainable business for the banker. That's even part of the business planning, which is linked to the client base, linked to the strong points, weak points, the personality type. So that's how I got into it. It's a fun niche to be in. The bankers I work with are really cool. It's a lot of fun to work with them. It's great to see them be successful. Get very fond of them, and they're genuinely good people, wanting to provide something valuable to clients, not wanting to be pushy, to be dishonest. They really care about the clients. It's nice to help them work along and provide something valuable. So yeah, it's a fun niche to be in.
I don't always have that feeling that they care about my business and myself. So I think those bankers should hire you, so I have a better connection with them. But that's one of my. I think we're getting to the last questions, but because it's so niche, because there is so much privacy, how do you? And I assume you have clients worldwide. How do you market yourself then around the world? Can you give a hint?
So it's
because how can someone in Singapore, a banker in Singapore, know about you? I can't imagine easily that if you coach one banker, he will say, "Hey, I found someone who helped me," because they want to keep it for themselves. Or not. I don't know. Maybe not.
It depends. So they're less likely to tell the competitors about it. But like, if you're a banker who covers the Singapore market, and you have a friend who covers the Benelux market, you're more likely to say, "Hey, listen, I worked with this chap. He helped me out. You should give him a look." That's more likely to happen. It happens that I get recommendations, referrals. People say, worked with him, or sometimes I listen to him. So I did a podcast earlier this year with someone else, a very interesting sales coach, and that gave a lot of traction. My LinkedIn articles speak. Some people find me through my website. People tend to spend more time on social media than websites these days, it seems. I think not many people look for private banker coach, but if they do, they're probably top of the list. In principle, the last time I looked, I was top of the list. So usually that's how it works. Now, it's the well, of course, there's a reluctant thing then about are people willing to invest in their own career? And there's a weird thing where if they do and it works, they can earn so much more money, but they sometimes feel like the employer should be the one investing. So this is a strange. Well, this is the employee mindset. The entrepreneur just views things differently. But yeah, marketing is largely word of mouth, um, social media, mainly LinkedIn, conversations such as this one, and yeah, that's usually it. People who know of me, with whom I've worked, or who know me from before, and who will be, sometimes saying, they hear someone complain about something and say, well, if you want someone who can actually help you achieve results quickly and tangibly, he's the person to call. So I've been very fortunate that people have been happy enough to often give referrals, refer me to others. So yeah, that's a good sign that things are working out.
Okay, I will put your link, how to contact you, and your LinkedIn in the show notes. I think we're going to come to the end, but I'm very happy to have this conversation because, like I said, for me, bankers were always like car salespeople. They just pronounce. And then when I heard there was a coach for bankers, I was thinking, is this like a ticking time bomb because they cannot handle their work or whatever? But you opened up completely different view why those bankers are using coaches. It's not because they have psychology problems or they get a burnout. It's because they just want to grow and do better for their clients. So we
That's
can
usually it. Yeah, they
so
want to
we
grow,
can
do
say that
better
the
for the
money is
client.
still safe.
Oh, absolutely. I do not do anything related to portfolio management. It's not my forte. That's not my niche at all. So all of that is taken care of. It's really on the client interfacing side, on the talking side. Um, they're talking, understanding, asking the right questions, change the behavior. But here's a question. So you had this vision of bankers like used car salespeople. So you've had that experience, right?
All the time.
So how does that work for you?
Well, I tell them directly. I say, listen, you're talking bullshit, but I need a bank account, and currently I feel better with you than with the other, so I'll sign here. But tomorrow I can leave. So I tell them.
Yeah, this is so. It changes a bit when we are, normal mortals, regular human beings, and when we start getting into the ultra high or the high net worth and the ultra high, like a million, 20 million, 100 million, and so on. But like we see, if someone comes to us and says, "You should buy this, it's amazing," well, what happens? We don't want to. We feel like someone's pushing us, and it just doesn't work. That method doesn't work, and no, it works occasionally, but we don't know why it works when it works. So one thing I get clients to do is say, when you go and meet a client, I'd like you to establish what outcome you're expecting.
Mhm.
I'd like you to rate it, and over 10 or 20 client meetings, I'd like you to rate the probability of meetings that you think will be successful. And give me like a low fork, high fork. If you can't predict what's going to happen in the meetings, you don't know what you're doing.
Mhm.
So, well, how do we predict? Well, I don't know. Follow your gut feeling. It's usually the best way to do it. If your gut feeling is way off, that tells you something about your gut feeling. If your hit ratio is low, that's not a great thing. If you don't know why it's low, that's catastrophic. It's a bit like if someone's a brain surgeon and the surgery doesn't work out and they don't know why it didn't work out, that's not reassuring. Or a car mechanic, I fixed your car. What did you fix? I don't know, but it's working. Like, it shouldn't be that way. And so many of these professions are, these people are highly professional. Now, I think with banking, one reason why it's like this is we're addicted to numbers. Numbers are things we can compare. And so it's easy to say this banker's professional because they know portfolio management. And all of this is true. That's taught. They've never been taught the person, the interaction side, which is maybe the hardest thing. They're not taught it. They expected to wing it because, you know what, we're humans, so we should have this relationship stuff figured out. It's like, but when you see divorce rates, people who can't communicate, all of the family tension, we don't have this human stuff figured out at all. Pretty much no one does. So assuming that someone can wing it and it's going to work out might work in good years. But even there, this is where we talk about success. If they've got 300 million but could have 600, they're not being successful. They're being sloppy and lazy. I say that with a lot of affection. So to put people on the spot and say, work it out, wing it, work it out, we can do it. But it's not fair on the banker, and it really isn't fair on the client. But then there's no support that's provided. Sometimes because they don't know how to provide the support, or it's not a priority. And I see, sometimes banks say, we like what you're doing, but we've decided to focus on, building the portfolio management stuff. It's like, well, sure, you can do that, but you haven't established a correlation between weak performance and bad results with clients. There might be one, but you don't know if this is going to change. But we've established that there's a clear need. But then we start tapping into people's image of themselves, and people don't like admitting that they could be doing things better, especially when it comes to human interactions. It hurts their ego. And that's one of the reasons why this niche is so much fun. It's so easy for bankers to get ahead from the competition with a few simple tricks.
And I'm sure not only the bankers, but if people were listening to what you were saying, they can use it in any profession and in any industry. Because it's
pretty much right. I'd say roughly 80% of what I do is applicable in other industries. And then about 20%, the tools I use are specific for finance, for banking. I've spoken with asset managers about this, actually, how to use these tools. It's easy to adapt it to asset management and get the same kind of results. It's easy to do it. So for the time being, the difference actually being usually with asset management, they're more process focused, so there's less of the personal interaction. But that being said, coaching asset management salespeople produces tremendously huge results for them. Also, so yeah, it's all. And as long as we're working with human beings, tools that help us interact with human beings are helpful. True. As long as it's humans.
Yes, it's all about the human connection.
Yes.
So, Frederick, thank you.
Thank you, Frederick.
Where that's cool. My first interview were the Frederick versus Frederick.
Exactly.
So where can people find you? I will put it anyway on the notes. And
sure.
One last recommendation for a book related to human connections that people should read.
So first of all, people can find me at frederickkermisch.com. So that's Frederick, I-C-K, Kermisch, MISCH.com. They can find me on LinkedIn under Frederick Kermisch. They can email me info@frederickkermisch.com. That's pretty much it. That's easy enough. Then books on human relations. One that I really enjoyed was called Games People Play by Eric Berne. It's the basics of what's called transactional analysis. It's a very, very powerful model to understand how we act certain ways. When I spoke about little children presenting to teachers and professors and parents, this comes from transactional analysis. It explains why we fall into this. This actually is one of the big issues with banks is banks will hire new bankers. They'll be acting like critical parents talking down to children. They'll be wanting these little children to be managing a relationship with uber rich people. So they have to suddenly switch from being a child to being an adult, which is a bit schizophrenic. And then they're still being treated like children. So it's weird when you treat them as employees, but you want them to be entrepreneurs. You can't have it both ways. Or they have to, work with me, then we figure out how to do it. But otherwise you're creating your own problems. And then this book also talks about, the games that people play. And some games can be, show up and show me that you've worked really hard, and I'll criticize you, and then you'll continue showing me that you've worked hard, so I continue criticizing you. So it's basically a loop. So some of these games are basically loops that people go through. That one is great. Another book that I recommend people read is called The Courage to Be Disliked by a Japanese author, Kishimi. And he explains the philosophy of Alfred Adler. the psychologist. It's very helpful when we get into these ideas. It's much easier to have the difficult conversations and be okay with them, be okay with outcomes that we don't want. It's much easier. So that's called The Courage to Be Disliked. And maybe the last one that's not psychological, but everyone should read, is Principles by Ray Dalio. There's so much to be learned from that book, so much that can be applied, and so many tools can be created based on that, to have the right conversations, to assess things. So if people feel like a bit of reading, those are 3 books I wholeheartedly recommend.
I will put them on my list because I love to
Excellent.
read.
Yes,
All right.
I remember that.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you.
And I hope soon we'll do another update on those stories.
Yeah,
and
with great
ideas.
pleasure.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you.